Hi there. This is a video about operations with integers. And in this video, we're going to be multiplying integers, okay? And remember that integers are just positive and negative numbers. Now, if we want to talk about multiplication, multiplication is simply just repeated addition, okay? So if I were to take the numbers 3 and multiply it by 2, then all I'm really doing is I'm going to be adding 3 2 times, okay? So what I can then say here is that 3 times 2 is really the same thing as taking 3 plus 3, which is going to give me 6, okay? Now, if I were to do 2 times 3, then really what I'm doing is I'm adding 2 3 times. All right, so that's going to give me 2 plus 2 plus 2. 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 2 again is going to give me 6, okay? And that's what we're doing, okay? Now, operations with integers really means that we're going to be doing positive and negative numbers, all right? So what I want to do is this, is show you a method on how to remember what kind of number you get depending on if you multiply a positive number and a negative number, or a negative times a positive, or a negative times a negative. So I'm going to do this. Anytime that you have any type of problem where you're multiplying positive and negative numbers, I want you to draw a triangle, and I want you to put a negative sign down here, a negative sign down here, and then a positive sign here, okay? Because we've got 3 different options, okay? And my first option is going to be a negative number times a positive number. And what that's going to give me is a negative number. All right, and how I know that is I take a negative times a positive and I cover those up, or I circle them on my paper like I did here, and the result, whatever's left over on that triangle, is the sign of my number, okay? Now I could do another one. I could do a positive times a negative, and that's going to give me a negative. Now you're probably wondering how I know that. Well, if I do a positive times a negative and circle those, I have a negative number left over. Now on the last one, if I take a negative times a negative, that's going to give me a positive. All right, so if I circle my 2 negative numbers, then I have a positive left over. Now, I don't always draw these circles on my triangle. I simply just cover them up with my pen and see which one is left, okay? Now, you can also think of it like this. All right, let's say that I have, let's say, negative 2 times 3. Okay, now really, you have to think about what I'm doing here. If I have negative 2 times 3, then what I really have is I have negative 2 plus negative 2 plus negative 2. And negative 2 plus negative 2 is going to give me negative 4, plus another negative 2 is going to give me a negative 6. Okay, and that's how that would work. Now let's come up with another option, and let's do the example of negative 2 times negative 3, okay? And you have to think about this in a different way, okay? If I use the same concept that I did up here, negative 2 plus negative 2 plus negative 2, all right, I have to think about, and let me just write that down. I've got negative 2 plus negative 2 plus negative 2. I have to think about, because this is negative 3, I have to think about the opposite of that, all right? So when I think of the opposite of negative 6, because really all you have for a negative symbol, that just means the opposite. The opposite of negative 6 is simply just positive 6. Now, I never really sit here and expand these things out. While you can do that, and that's how I do explain what multiplication really is, I use the triangle. Okay, so what I want to do is think of a third or another example, and I want to multiply 3 numbers together, all right? And I'm going to multiply 3 negative numbers together. And so I've got this. Let's say I take negative 3 times negative 2 times negative 4. And what I do here is I can just multiply them in any order that I want, really, but I'm going to go from left to right. Now, if I take negative 3 times negative 2, negative times a negative is going to give me a positive 6. So this is going to give me a positive 6 and then times negative 4. All right, so if I do this, 6 times negative 4, positive times a negative is going to give me a negative up here. And so 6 times 4 is 24, so this is negative 24. And that's how I do that, okay? Now, the one thing that we need to consider here is that I multiplied 3 negative numbers together, and my final result was negative, all right? So if you multiply an odd number of negative numbers, your result will be negative. If you multiply an even number of negative numbers, it'll be positive. And let's check that out. One more example here. And let's say that I do negative 3 times negative 2 times negative 4 times another negative 2. So if I were to do something like this, negative 3 times negative 2 is going to give me a positive 6. And then I bring everything else down and I do times negative 4 times negative 2. So then I multiply 6 by negative 4, and that's going to give me a negative 24, like we had just found up here. Now I'm going to take that number again and I'm going to multiply that by a negative 2. So a negative times a negative is going to give me a positive, and if I've got negative 24 times a negative 2, 24 times 2 is 48, going to give me positive 48. And so that's what I get as a result. All right, so you can see how I multiply all of those together. All right, that's all I got for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you later. Bye.